Good evening, everyone. As Payal said, thank you for braving Baba Ram Rahim and for being here, in fact, well on time. In addition to Payal and me, there's of course Neena, Shuli, Anjali and Ritu who join us both in welcoming all of you here very, very warmly. Many of you have asked who this mystery speaker is, and I wish I could produce Salman Rushdie in a burqa, but it's not him. It's someone much more interesting and someone much more important. We thought we were going to handle and speak of only two burning issues this evening, but actually now it turns out there are two. But before I introduce the first one to you, I wanted to pose a rhetorical question. If I told you today that 12,400 journalists had killed themselves last year because their very profession doesn't allow them to exist, would you be shocked? Would you stop in your tracks? Would you demand a public discourse on it? What if I told you that 11,500 lawyers committed suicide the year before? Again, because their profession doesn't allow them to exist in a dignified way. Would that shock you? Would that stop you in your tracks? And now pose that question across professions. 12,500 bankers committed suicide last year. 12,500 CEOs, teachers, entrepreneurs. Ask yourself that question across professions and ask, will our country stop to discuss it, to act upon it, and to prevent it? And the answer, as all of you have said, would be a yes. But the truth is that last year, 12,500 farmers committed suicide. And it has not stopped us in our tracks. It has not made us demand an action that will prevent this, and it continues to happen. When I first joined journalism, actually almost like 20, 25 years ago, we used to often talk of how there were 3 lakh farmers that had committed suicide. And that number still floats around, and we haven't revised it. But this number that I'm presenting today, 12,500 farmers, is just in 1 year. It's the number that the government of India presented to the Supreme Court. It is what the agriculture minister told the parliament this year as being the number that committed suicide last year. The reason we presented this and communicated to all of you that it was a mystery session is because if we had said, please come and listen to the farmer crisis, chances are our eyes would have glazed over. Chances are that we would think, oh, we know all about this. And even the most empathetic amongst us would have glazed over because we think this is someone else's crisis. It's not lawyers, it's not educators. These are people who are just kind of killing themselves on the periphery of our imagination. But the truth is that these are not personal tragedies. It's a structural crisis. They're killing themselves because the profession doesn't allow them to exist. And we're all party to why that entire profession is not being allowed to exist. Just to again talk about the scale and the fact that one is not just seeking a charitable attention to the cause, is that 800 million people are involved in the farming sector in India. That's more than 54% of the country. That's more than half of the country are involved in the farming sector. And yet it's become impossible for them to continue. Why? Because the cost at which we buy their produce is lower than their input cost that goes into creating that produce. And I'm just going to throw a couple more figures at you before we call this mystery speaker onto stage. And those figures are that last year, our import bill on wheat and cereals was 6,000 crores and above. Sorry, it was 9,000 crores and above, whereas just a year earlier it was 134 crores, which means that we have escalated 6,000% of what our import bill on cereals is, at a time when we've actually had a bumper crop on that. Our entire import bill on food last year was 1.4 lakh crores, at a time when we are producing much more than we need. It's rotting in granaries, and 12,400 people are committing suicide because we are not willing to buy it at a cost above what they have spent on creating that produce. And those numbers can go on and on and on. They're just such shock figures. And the fact that we don't tune into it is really what the crisis is about. As I said, this is not just to seek charity, but to understand the chain of consequences of what links these suicides back to us, both as common citizenship, but also in terms of self-interest. that if 800 million people are put out of their jobs, will it not impact us? Will it not impact our own security? And so these are the questions that we want to look at today, not just in diagnosing the crisis, but to look at prescriptions. And that's where our mystery speaker comes in. Devinder Sharma, who we had briefly about a year ago on the stage, spoke only for about 10 minutes because he came with Mr. Chidambaram. But he roiled up everybody's interest enough that many of you came to us and said, please bring him back. We want a more sustained session and conversation with him. So we thought of bringing more farmers today, farmers from the field. But then we decided against it because this is not really an issue of creating emotional response. We need an intellectual and political engagement with this issue. And our attempt today is to create an ecosystem of concern and consent and engagement amongst what is a very influential audience, hoping that it will have a ripple effect. Devinder Sharma, much like P. Sainath, started out as a journalist, but since then he's been focusing on the farmer issue, is a wonderful policy analyst, has been actively engaged with farmers across the country. And today he will not just be diagnosing this crisis, but explaining why it affects each one of us in this room and beyond. And he has some radical prescriptions for it. Prescriptions that can be acted on if we have the will for it. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Devinder Sharma. Devinder, your hometown did everything possible to not allow you to come. So Devinder's from Chandigarh. So thank you for being here. And as I said, we are doubly pleased to have you back a second time because this is an issue that definitely needs our attention. So let me start, Devinder, with the first question, which is, as I just spelled out very briefly, that 12,400 people committed suicide last year. I think it was 11,500 the year before. What is the reason that there is a continuing crisis year upon year, year upon year? And if, as I said, 800 million people are involved in the farming sector, that's a massive vote bank. Why are political parties and we blind to this entire crisis?
First of all, Shoma, I think I must acknowledge that I'm very, very pleased to be back here. And the response that I witnessed in my previous short intervention was remarkable, quote unquote. And I thought I must, when she said thought I must come back. Your question, let me just illustrate by one example. A farmer in Punjab, he was about 37, he committed suicide. What he did was, before he jumped into the canal, he had a son, 5 years old, and he had an outstanding loan of 10 lakh rupees, just 10 lakh rupees.
Just speak a little more.
He tied his son to his waist, and then he jumped into the canal. And he left behind a note, and he said, I know it is not fair to carry my son along with me to the watery grave, but why I'm doing it is because I realize that he will not be able to repay back that 10 lakh rupees in his entire life. So what is the use of him living, surviving, if this is the kind of situation? I think this one classical example, and I can give you a number of such examples across the country, illustrates how terrible the situation in the rural India is. You know, something that we feel all disconnected today, as you rightly mentioned earlier. We think they come from Timbuktu, they come from sub-Saharan Africa, they are not our problem, they are not in our own backyard. That's what we believe. But these people who are dying are in our own backyard. We don't even know, we don't want to know what is happening to them, why are they committing suicide. In fact, the situation is so bad, Shoma, that when I tweet that today 3 farmers have died, in Punjab, the troll comes back to me saying, why are you speaking about them? They need to die. I feel so sad. These are the educated people who are on the troll. Every day they hit back at me saying that you shouldn't be talking about these farmers. They're good for nothing. They've been drinking. They are inefficient. So they need to die. Look at this kind of situation that exists in this country. And I think, I don't know who to blame, but I suppose all of us have a responsibility to see that, after all, they are also our blood. They're also a part of the same kind of family structures that we all are involved in.
So in fact, Devinder, you correctly said that there is a great impatience with the entire farmer crisis. There is the sense that they are very unproductive. You know, the figure we always talk about is that they are 60 or 65% of the country involved in the farming crisis, but they only contribute 14% to the GDP. And so all economic, the kind of white-collar thinkers in the salons of Delhi and elsewhere, including the media, there is impatience. And I think in 1996, there was a World Bank demand that we move 400 million people out of the agriculture sector. But so let's address that at first, that are our farmers really unproductive? Are they a burden on this country? Are they lazy? You know, why is it that this entire profession is in the kind of crisis it is?
Let me answer the two questions in your question. One was about the World Bank telling us. I remember in 1996, when I was at the MS Swaminathan Foundation in Chennai for a conference, the then Vice President of the World Bank Sustainable Development, I still recall his name, Ismail Sarageldin, he made a statement, presentation, which said that World Bank estimates, this was in 1996, World Bank estimates that in the next 20 years, the number of people who will be migrating from the rural to the urban areas in India, their number would be equal to twice the combined population of UK, France, and Germany. The combined population of UK, France, and Germany is 200 million. So the World Bank had estimated that 400 million people will move out from rural to the urban areas in India in the next 20 years, which means 2015. For a number of years, Shoma, I thought this was a warning to us. They were trying to alert us. But then I realized, no, it was not a warning. It was a directive that you have to do this job. In 2008, when I read the World Development Report, which is the annual publication of World Bank, it says very clearly that you haven't done the job that you were supposed to do it. Now you hasten the process. And then it suggests, you know, how to hasten the process is because you go in for land rentals, land acquisitions. These are inefficient people, quote unquote, who are owner of this land. They should be moved out into urban areas, and efficiency, which means real estate and so on, should move into the countryside. That is one projection they had. Second one was that the younger people in agriculture do not know anything but to farm. So teach them how to become industrial workers. Please set up a network of training institutes in India which teaches them how to become industrial workers. This was in 2008. In 2009, Mr. Chidambaram in his budget made provision for 1,000 ITIs. The World Bank said in 2008, we did it in 2009. Even today, we are following the same system. We want to move these people out. In fact, Raghuram Rajan used to say that the biggest reform would be when we move these people out from agriculture into the urban areas, because in urban centers, you need cheaper labor. Look at that. Cheaper labor is the objective. That is why the CII and the finance minister today, Mr. Arun Jaitley, has gone on record saying, we will create 300 million jobs in the next 5 years till 2022. The question that nobody asked, we haven't created 300 million jobs in the last 70 years. How will you create 300 million jobs in the next 5 years? Because that is cheap labor, the hardy mazdoor. That's what the country needs. So therefore, you want to move these people out into the urban areas. And if this is job creation, I think we should be ashamed of what economics we understand. There's something terribly going wrong. Now, the other question is that you raised is that there is, these people are not productive. And if you read the Niti Aayog reports, or anyone for that matter, the companies, the executives, the chief executives, the CEOs, and so on, they always say, oh, we need to raise productivity of wheat and rice or the crops, because that is what will, more the productivity, more will be the income. That's what the assumption is. And I always say, okay, let's now look at the realities. Yes, we have low productivity in much of India. I don't deny that. But that's also a reason why it is low. We'll give that reason later. But let's first understand. Let's look at Punjab. Punjab is the food bowl. Punjab is the place which has 98% assured irrigation. In the United States, only 11.4% is the assured irrigation they provide. In Punjab, we provide 98% assured irrigation, which is the highest anywhere in the world. The productivity of wheat, rice, and maize, the cereal crops, is the highest in the world. If you see, match it with Japan, with America, with European countries, Australia, Punjab tops the chart. And yet, there is not a day that I don't read in the newspapers 3, 4, 5 farmers committing suicide. If with this high productivity, with this highest irrigation area under irrigation, And yet farmers are dying, which means there is something wrong with the way we try to analyze the situation. Something is terribly going wrong with the way I think the educated in the cities are looking at agriculture. We all believe they drink. If I think drinking was one reason, many of us would have died by now. Let's be very clear about it. And the other part is the farmers spend too much money on the marriage of their daughters and son. Now, please tell me, if farmer has to get his daughter married, what does he do? He also needs money. After all, he lives in a society. You wouldn't be, shocked to know this, that in Punjab, the biggest second-hand market of almost new tractors is in Punjab. Why? The man has to marry his daughter. The reality is that he also get to give a car or scooter or whatever it is in a dowry. He buys a new tractor because in 500 rupees you can get a new tractor. The tractor owner will garland the tractor and deliver the tractor at your home. It may cost 6 lakhs, 7 lakhs, so on. In a week or so, the man sells it because he needs to buy a car. And then he sells it, he gets a second-hand price, okay? And then he sells it, let's say, for 3 lakhs. He buys an Alto car and gives it as a dowry. But then look at his credit that he has taken. Look at the kind of, burden that he has already come under. Isn't he right in doing what he's doing? The only thing is that he is deprived of his income. That is why he is forced to go on and take this kind of a route to address the family crisis or to address his aspirations of his children and so on. One child, sorry if I take a minute, one child in Maharashtra, he committed suicide. He was a graduate student. He jumped into the well in the same village and he left behind a note. He only asked one thing. He said, please tell me if the school teacher can afford to send his son for spending 1 lakh rupees into a private college, when will my father, who's a Kisan, would be able to do that? That's the point we need to understand. Everyone wants to go to a private college or good college, spend 1 lakh, 2 lakh rupees as the fee. But the poor farmer has no money in his pocket because he has been deprived of his income all these years. He has been actually kept impoverished all these years. And this is a deliberate policy that is being followed over the years by successive governments.
Devinder, we're talking in a country of karma and takdir. So many people will feel that, well, this is the farmer's lot. So when you say this, I can think of a lot of skeptical minds which will say, well, that's the burden of your profession, that, it doesn't get you the kind of returns that being a school teacher does. So 2 questions, Devinder. One, can you point out what is the absurdity? Earlier we said that this profession structurally is not allowed to exist, is not allowed to prosper. So can you bring out some of the absurdities of the situation, of the conditions under which farmers are made to practice farming? Question number 1. And question 2 is, like we said, there is a certain tedium with this conversation. People would blank out, they'll glaze over. Can you point out what is the connectivity between the farming crisis in India today and, say, our members in this audience?
The first question, as why the farmers are being deprived of their rightful income. I give you 2 examples. First of all is the economic survey, which, as you know, the government brings out, a 2016 economic survey. It says very clearly that the average income of farming family, it says, in 17 states of India, which means half the country, is rupees 20,000 a year. The average income of a farming family in half the country is only 20,000 a year, which means less than 1,700 rupees a month. Now, this is your own economic survey, the government's own statistics that I'm quoting. And then we are saying we'll double the income in the next 5 years. I think we should understand what it actually means. We should understand. Why it is 1,700 rupees a year is the question. It's not that the man is not working very hard. It's not that the man is not able to produce or to, for like every livelihood, he is also trying to do his best. It is because we are deliberately keeping the prices low for 2 reasons. And I think if you allow me a minute extra, I'd like you to know the bigger, in a way that you can understand. You all know Norman Borlaug. Norman Borlaug was the Nobel laureate who's the only agriculture scientist who got the Nobel Prize for, of course, the Green Revolution. Whenever he would come to India, I was then the agriculture correspondent of Indian Express. And Agriculture Express was a big paper, and every time I would go accompany him during his travels. And I was very lucky a number of times, to get an opportunity to with him. I remember in one incident which I want to share with you. we were talking about the political crisis now at that particular time. There's a country called Poland, as most of you know, or everyone knows, in Europe. It had a leader called Lech Walesa. He was the worker solidarity movement's leader at that particular time. He got the Nobel Prize for Peace. So I just asked him, what do you have to say about Walesa getting the Nobel Prize? He says, actually, the Nobel Committee had put up a team of experts together to go and find out whether he deserves a Nobel Prize or not. That team was led by Borlaug. So Borlaug says, when I went there, whatever I saw, I came back and gave a report saying that Walesa does not deserve a Nobel Prize. And yet he got a Nobel Prize. Now this will tell you the political economy, how it operates. I asked him, I said, why did you say that he doesn't deserve a Nobel Prize? He said, because when I went there, I realized what Walesa was fighting for was actually cheaper food for the workers. But he, in the game, was forgetting that there is somebody who produces that cheaper food. What will happen to him? You want to keep food prices low, what will happen to those millions of people who produce that food? You know, they will eventually die. So he said, that is why I said he's pitting one class against the other. So my committee's recommendation was that he should not get a Nobel Prize, but the World Nobel Prize was given to him. That is the economic thinking. So you must understand. So in India, we are keeping food prices low because you and me don't agitate. Potato prices go up by 2 rupees, we are all up in arms. Media goes haywire on that. So, but we don't realize what is happening to the poor farmer, whose prices are being kept low. Now let's come to the facts. I did analysis. In 1970, the beginning of the Green Revolution, you know, you can measure the income of a farmer from the procurement price he gets. You know, you all know MSP, minimum support price, is what the farmers get. Not many, but whatever. Just give us an idea. The MSP for wheat in 1970 was 76 rupees a quintal. The salary of school teachers in 1970 was 90 rupees a month. In 1971, when the salary of school teachers was raised by 10 rupees, they celebrated by Diwali. And 76 rupees at that time was the procurement price of wheat, because the country needed that food at that time. Today, when I did the analysis, in 2015, the price of wheat, procurement price was 1450, which means 19 times increase in 45 years. And the salary of school teacher in the same period has gone up by 280 to 320 times. The salary of government employees has gone up by 120 to 150 times. I'm just talking of basic pay and DA. I'm not including allowances. The salary of the college professors and teachers have gone up by 150 to 170 times. The salary or the income of the farmers has gone up by 19 times. And I'm sure you will agree that if the income of the government employees had also gone up by 20 times in this year, many of them would have committed suicide or quit their job. Now that's the reality. We have deliberately kept the prices low just to feed the country, just to keep the inflation low. That's what Norman Borlaug, when he explained, that's the kind of thing we are still following. That's the reality. Now please tell me, if you were to ask me what should be the price, 76 rupees becomes 1450 in 45 years. If I go by the minimum yardstick of what I mentioned earlier, the prices, the income or the salaries of other sections of society have gone up 120 to 320 times. Now look at it. If I take 100 times as the nominal, let's say minimum, the wheat price actually should be 7,600 rupees a quintal. That's what he deserves. Now I know the first question that comes up is, oh, this will mean my wheat price will go up. But that's okay. We can sort out that problem. But why should he be deprived of his due is my question. Because we are keeping him deliberately hungry, he has no option, he has to die. That is what is happening in this country. As you rightly mentioned, 330,000 farmers have died in the last 22 years. And we are not even concerned. 2 CEOs die, 2 executives will die. Let me tell you, the entire country will be up in arms. Why is this happening? Just 2, you mentioned 100, but I'm just telling you 2 people dying. This will happen in this country. So that is the kind of disconnect that prevails.
So I asked you, Devinder, in fact, just to drive home that sense of absurdity, whenever there's talk of farm loan waivers, everybody goes up in arms. And of course, that's not the solution. It's only a temporary reprieve. But there is huge unpopularity amongst our class of people for any farm loan waiver. When the UPA did it for 70,000 crore, it was a massive political uproar. This year, of course, state after state has given loan waivers. But again, just to point out the contrast that Devinder is pointing out, and we haven't talked about corporate salaries and all of that, by how many 1,000% our own salaries have gone up in the last 20, 25 years, or our earnings have. But an interesting fact is that just last year, the customs exemption on gold, diamond, and jewelry was to the tune of 78,000 crore. That is the amount of custom exemption there was on diamonds and jewelry. And you can bring out further absurdities like that. For instance, the direct corporate tax foregone was another 75,000 crore. The NPAs, as you know, is now crossed 5-6 lakh crore of corporate loans that have not been returned. So all of that we are willing to absorb as a society. But farm loan waivers and all of this creates massive unpopularity. So that brings me back to that other question I asked you, Devinder, that there's a massive emotional disconnect with farmers. So let's assume that we don't want to be compassionate and charitable to our fellow citizens. Why should this issue matter to people in this room?
I think this is the question which is very, very important. I'm glad you raised it or you asked. Let me just clarify, just me answer. Everyone thinks that farmers are highly subsidized. They are living on doles. But in reality, it is the industry which is living on doles. We just don't want to accept it. Let me give you a couple of figures. And I think we, as part of the society, must understand. Farmer, if you remember, the Yogi Adityanath said that he will waive off small loans for the small farmers. Total, 36,000 crores. Punjab Chief Minister wants to waive off the loan of farmers. Total, 9,000 crores. The Maharashtra Chief Minister wants to waive off the loan of farmers is about 30 crores. Now, if 30 plus 36 plus 10, I think it all becomes about 76,000 crores. That's roughly 76,000 crores, and the country is up in arms. This is a waste of money. If we do it once, it's not going to be answerable, blah, blah, blah. But quietly, the Finance Ministry has published a note which says 2016, 2017, 81,000 crores of corporate loans have been written off. Nobody has questioned. 81,000 crore is more than the loan that I'm talking about, 76,000 crore for millions of farmers. And here it is only a handful of people, 81,000 crores. If you just add the last 3 years, or I don't know what is roughly about 3 or 4 years, it comes to 2.5 lakh crores has been written off. Over the years, if you see, 10 lakh crores is the non-performing asset or the loan that has been restructured. Even today, we are being told very clearly the telecom sector is just one sector, telecom sector. The bad loan is 4.85 lakh crore. And the same State Bank of India chief who said that it leads to farmers writing off the farmers' loan, leads to credit indiscipline, is now written herself to the government that please structure or waive off these loans so that the industry can grow. 4.85 lakh crore just for telecom sector. Add up all these figures as the Standing Parliamentary Committee has given a report for 2017. It has said very clearly that total outstanding loan of the country, the bank's loan, is 7 lakh crores roughly, out of which farmers' NPA is only 1%. Corporate NPA is 70%. Everyone has no problems with the farmers' 1% outstanding loans, but 70% everyone is very happy. Look at the chief economic advisor of this country. He says writing off the corporate loans leads to economic growth. I don't understand. If writing off of corporate loans, outstanding corporate loans leads to economic growth, please tell me why doesn't the writing off of the farmer's loan also lead to economic growth? It is something fundamentally wrong. We need to understand, because we don't ask the question, they get away with these kinds of statements. And that is the reason. The Urjit Patel, the RBI chief, has also made such kind of an outlandish statement saying that this is bad practice. But when it comes to corporate, they're all quiet. They think that's the only way to economic growth. Newspapers also say the same. Pink newspapers lead the entire march. But when it comes to farmers, everyone is up in arms. Basically, it is that you should not get that benefit. All benefit should be to me. That's what the thinking, I think, for the entire society today is the society which dominates the narrative. Now, the other question that you asked, it's very interesting. 2014-15, when Manmohan Singh became the Prime Minister, since then till today, 55 lakh crore is the tax exemption to the corporates. You just mentioned the diamond industry. 55 lakh crore is the tax exemption to the industry. Now, I remember when the gas subsidy, LPG gas subsidy, was talked about when it was raised to 10 cylinders, if you remember Rahul Gandhi's time. One economist of the country wrote an article saying that we should stop this subsidy. It is money going into drain. And how much will be saving? 48,000 crore. And in fact, that economist wrote in that paper, 48,000 crore is good enough to wipe out poverty from India for 1 year. And I reacted to him. I said, if 48,000 crore is good enough to write off the poverty, to waive poverty or to get poverty out of this country for 1 year, then 55 lakh crore can waive poverty or can remove poverty for 110 years. Then I was given an answer, no, you don't know. This is how the industry works. What is this? Basically, the objective of this country is to remove poverty. I'm sure you will agree. Everyone works towards removing poverty and hunger. If that 55 lakh crore that has been given to the corporates, which has not worked, it has gone into their pockets. It has neither created an industrial output increase. It has not led to manufacturing sector increase. It has not led to export increase. It has not created jobs. Where has that 55 lakh crore gone? Money saved is money earned. Somebody has earned that money. But if that 55 lakh crore was rightly used for removing poverty, we could have got rid of poverty in the next, as I said, 55 years. Isn't that our objective? Why should we be ashamed of saying this? That's the way to remove our poverty, rather than believe in the trickle-down impact that, the rich people will have drivers, so they will pay him, and so they will have maid servants, and so on and so forth. This has gone on for long. It's a failed strategy that we all accept now. So this is how we have tried to, divert the debate, real issues, into those kind of things where all blames are put on farmers as if they are a burden on the country. They are not a burden on the country. Let's be very clear. We are being fed because they are producing food for us. Despite living in hunger, every year they produce a bumper crop. And that is the reason why this country is not gone into the kind of imports that the rest of the developing countries or rest of the other developing world has gone into it. In the last 20 years, Shomaji, you'll be surprised, 105 of the developing countries, the third world countries, there are 149 countries are classified as third world countries, out of which 105 countries have become food importing countries. That is how the international trade is designed. And I'm sure you will agree, if India was a food importing country, we would have known what hunger is all about, what food insecurity is all about.
But Devinder, I'm going to come back, but again, because as I said, very often there is a resistance again, I say our class of people, where there is the sense that farming sector is already highly subsidized and that we are really only paying for rich farmers, and that none of what you have said, I think, will remove that sense in people's minds that this is basically an unviable sector. So again, I'll put to you that, is this a viable sector? Can it be made viable? And so I'm going to come towards the prescriptions very soon. And secondly, I just wanted to share with you some of what Devinder is saying, that even the Bharatiya Kisan Sangh, which is a RSS organization, is extremely opposed to Mr. Modi's administration and policies on farm issues. But it's not really Mr. Modi, it's a continuum of what Mr. Manmohan Singh and Chidambaram and governments before them have done. But the reason I'm pointing it out is because this is Bharatiya Kisan Sangh, they're an RSS affiliated organization, and if they are up in arms, then clearly there's something at stake here which is beyond politics. And what they're saying is that we are importing unemployment, because at a time when our farmers are producing bumper crops, we are still importing dal and udar and wheat. Wheat, when we have bumper crops, we're still importing wheat. And so that thing that Devinder said, that we are structurally trying to put farmers out of business. So Devinder, you still haven't answered that question, which I've asked you twice now, which is that why should we be interested? Chalo, this is some farmers' issue happening in the hinterland. Mandasur, 6 farmers shot dead. Like a good Hindu, Rahul Gandhi went there and then decided things mustn't be taken too seriously and went to London the next day. So why should we take this seriously? How is it affecting our well-being?
See, I think
the future, how will it affect us in the future?
I think one of the remarkable initiatives taken by farmers was this year in Maharashtra. It started with Maharashtra. Farmer in just one Gram Panchayat decided they will stop food supplies to the cities. And I thought if I were to really advise them, I would have said, you can't do it. One gram panchayat would not make a difference. But because they passed a resolution, it gradually spread. 2,000 gram panchayats passed the similar kind of resolution. Just they announced for 10 days we're going to stop food supplies. And in 10 days, agriculture became the lead story. It had not happened with all these farmer suicides. But in just 4 days, after 4th day, Bombay started feeling the pinch. And then it was all in the news, and media started talking about it. I thought a remarkable job done by farmers. And I think that is the only way we will understand. That's the only way we will understand, whether we like it or not. Farmers stopping supply to the cities, then you get to know what hits you. Otherwise, you are very comfortable. You'll go to Benetton, to your malls, Ambience Mall or whatever, you'll buy your food, you come back very happy. But the day the farmers stop it, it was just 7 districts. Just 7 districts. 640 districts in this country, Shoma, and I'm sure if 30 districts were to stop food supplies to city, the country would come into their senses. And I think they deserve it.
Devinder, we're going to run out of time very quickly. I have to, what we promised the audience was radical prescriptions. So can you tell us now, we've diagnosed some of the issue. I still feel with not enough fire and brimstone that it needs to be done, but we've run out of time. Very quickly, Devinder, what are the prescriptions for sorting this out,
Well, in our understanding, let me make 1 or 2, 3 points very clear to you. The government itself has accepted that the total outstanding loans for the farming sector today, or the farmers, is 12,80,000 crores a year. That's the kind of outstanding loans they have. I am personally not in favor of writing off the loans. We are saying that farmers need income, not credit. We need to provide farmers with income. In a study that I did, and we are still in the process of coming out with a report, which will be published soon, we are trying to say that we have worked it out, that the total that the country, that the farmers are due, or is due to them, is 12,60,000 crores a year. That's what we are depriving them of. Now, our point is that farmers need to get a rightful income. So rightful income that we have been able to work out, good or bad, I don't know, we'll put it up before you all, is 18,000 rupees per month as the basic income that the farmer family must get. So we have worked out how to achieve that, how to go towards that, and so on. So we are saying that we must ensure as a society that farmers get 18,000 rupees a month as his income per family. That's one. Second is, today the country has, as she's rightly mentioned, 800 million. Some people say 600 million. Let's say 600, 700 million people, or 800 million people is the number of farmers in this country, including their families. And as I said, we are in a jobless growth today. We are facing not only India, but globally, it's a jobless growth. And in the future, with automation coming in, I don't think jobs are being created. Everyone knows that. So there's no hope for a job. So instead of destroying the livelihoods in the rural areas, we need to build up those livelihoods. We need to ensure that there's more capacity in the hands of farmers who can buy or who can be consumers like you all. And that would mean you create more demand. Once you create more demand, the industrial output also goes up. So instead of focusing on exports, we need to come down to cater to domestic needs, domestic requirement, and so on. For that, we are suggesting that there is a need to provide farmers, could be through MSP, through the farmers, product producer companies, or whatever, but a minimum level of income. Just to illustrate, I'm sorry, I know you're running against time, to make people understand, the 7th Pay Commission, the jump that it provided in the salaries will cost the country 4,80,000 crores a year. When it's implemented across the country, it will cost the country a nation exchequer 4,80,000 crore additional every year. Nobody has questioned where will the money come from. Nobody has raised this point that fiscal deficit will grow. But if this 4,80,000 crore was to be given to the farmers, which is 52% of the country, you can see how much capacity, how much of more income would be generated, how much more demand would be generated. But you and me will start saying, oh my God, 4,80,000 crore to the farmer, he doesn't deserve it, he's already a waste, he's already a burden on us, and so on and so forth. But don't forget, Shoma ji, I think we all should know, in 2007, 2008, the world faced food crisis after a long, long time. In 2007, 2008, we escaped because we had not oriented our agriculture internationally or integrated our agriculture internationally. But 37 countries, including Egypt, faced food riots. So don't be under this impression that you can get away with it. Sooner or later, it's going to come to all of us. Food riots, when it happens, you can understand. In a country like India, if a food riot were to take place, I think you should be all very, very careful that we do not get back into that mayhem or into that kind of anarchy. We want country to be really economically growing, and the best way to ensure that is to make agriculture more profitable. My argument has been, it is only agriculture that can bail out our economy today. She mentioned the share of agriculture in GDP is 14%. It is 14% because we deprive farmers of their income. You provide farmers their rightful income, the GDP will jump. So you are deliberately keeping that. It's not their share is low because they are unproductive. It is because you are keeping them uneconomical or non-economical and you are not giving them rightful income. Give them the rightful income, you will see they will beat. Just one more thing before I go is how much subsidy. You'll be surprised. Look at the IT sector. I'm also a votary for them. The IT sector is slush with money. The sector which is making money should be paying for everything. I'm sure you'll agree. Why should they be given exemption? They get land at the rate of 1 rupee per square meter. They get land at 1 rupee per square meter, as much land as they want. In fact, Rajasthan government earlier, when she was there as the chief minister, the present chief minister, she actually said that we will provide one job also from the government exchequer to you. Look at that. It's a sector which can pay, and that is why the Infosys company alone has 15,000 hospitality rooms created in this country. This is more than what Oberoi and Taj has. 15,000 rooms created, all from subsidized kind of inputs that the country provides. This is what is happening. Why can't we give poor land at the rate of 1 rupee per square meter? Just give it to poor. They are entrepreneurs. They can also be startups. They can also be startups. They are also as determined as you are. But the only fact is you only look at our children, the people who wear tie and kurta. But let's go to the poor. Give them land. Why can't that man who is selling or who has a ready, you call it, selling golgappas, give him land at 1 rupee per square meter? 10 square meter give him, and you'll see what will happen. Why can't we do that instead of giving land to those who don't need it free of cost? They should pay. Why should they not pay tax is something which I've never understood. This is just one section of the society. You can see number of such kind of anomalies in this entire economic structure. And that is the reason why we have this economic crisis. In fact, the modern economists, I always stand up and say, today has reached a dead end. Now they don't know how to move forward. That is why globally they are struck. They are not able to create jobs. They all talk of fiscal deficit or austerity to be taken care of, which means cut on or on social spendings and then only privatization. That's the way they are trying to build up. But I think they have reached a dead end now. It's a matter of few years. The world will have to stand up and wake up that this is not the economy that can now take the country to the 22nd century or 23rd century.
We have time for questions? We have time for just a couple of questions. I just wanted to throw in one more fact that this is the 50th year of the Green Revolution. MS Swaminathan created that for us. And the formula that MS Swaminathan has come up with and has given to the government is that farmers should get whatever their input cost is plus 50% of income. And that is something that is, I think, universally accepted. It is something that Mr. Swaminathan, who's an economist, has put forward. And everything that Devinder said actually points to the fact that we just have to have a shift in our imaginative and intellectual framework to begin to look at this whole crisis with new eyes, rather than from the knee-jerk positions with which we look at. With that, some questions, yeah.
Hi. A lot of good points that you raised. I come from an agrarian background, so a couple of things which I thought you did not touch upon. In last 40 years, land holding per farmer family has gone down by almost 90% because every 20 years there's a division by 3 or 4. So you cannot expect the same earning in that family once his land holding is going down by a quarter down.
Sure.
So there is a larger problem which is different to, and I don't think you addressed that at all.
Yeah.
That the families, the land holding is going down, so it's not like production going down. Number two, you talked about a lot about societies. Why is the geography of society different? Why is Maharashtra having all the societies and Bihar, huge migration, not having societies? What is your thought on that? And the third I would like to know about is, you talked about production prices. The price is not the problem what we pay in the city. The price changes between what the farmer pays or buys or sells at and what we buy at. There is a huge industry in the middle which is making 20, 30, 40 times. You're not talking about that. So the idea is not dole. The idea is that the structure is wrong in this.
You've asked 3 questions. Give him time because we're going to run out of time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Land holdings.
I'm
Land
glad you asked this question. I think we can go on for another 2 hours if you allow me to do that. But the point here is, yes, the land holdings are going down. There's no denying about it. But to move that man from even that 1 acre or percentage of
0.5 now.
0.5 acre now, or no, it's still not 0.5, it's 1.1 still. That's what you think. But the moving him out into the urban areas and making him a Dihadi Mazdoor is not the answer. The answer is today we are saying that we should go in for homestead gardens. At least let him have a homestead garden, if nothing else. So the point I'm trying to make is let's rebuild the agriculture of the rural economy rather than moving him out just because his land holding size is going down. Even China today now has realized that what they did earlier has now made them into a bigger importer. So they are now going back into restructuring their own agriculture, so strengthening the agriculture again because they realized it was a mistake. So let's not compete that mistake. I'm completely agreeing with you that yes, the land holding size is coming down, but making him Dihadi Mazdoor is not the answer. The other part is that prices that you pay in the cities and prices that the farmers get, yes, there is a huge difference, but that's not because of farmers. That's because of the system that we have created. But we are not going to address that also. If you read the report, Economics Time today, it's very interesting. They are now going into spot, procurement, or what you call spot, the future trading, the commodity trading. So they are building on that kind of thing. So what you are doing is you are now saying that, the bigger players, when they come in, they will control the price. That is okay. Look at it. And when the dhoti kurta man controls the price, you all object that he's going to cartelization, he's monopolizing the price. So it's the same. Earlier the dhoti kurta man was doing it. Onion price was in the control of 12 people. 12 just big wholesale dealers were controlling the entire onion trade in India. But now if you allow the 12 organized businessmen to control, I think there's no difference. So we need to have really a kind of a change or thinking that should evolve over the years to correct that mistake that we did rather than to repeat that mistake or build on that mistake. My way would be different. I would rather say, people like us sitting in this room, each one of us has a family doctor. Each family today has a family doctor. Why can't you go for a family farmer? Why can't you go for a family farmer with whom you have confidence, you know that he will give you directly, he'll produce organically or whatever safe food for you? Why can't we have that system? Then we'll say, no, we can't locate them. Baba, if you have to locate a Benetton shirt, you go all the way searching in the entire city to look for that shirt. But when you want to look at farmers, you don't want to do it. You want him to come at your door and sell. I think these are the kind of things, innovative things which we can try. Try, my dear, first before nodding your head. Try it and you will see it will happen. The other part, the third question that you had, which I forgot.
Suicides.
Suicides.
Geography of suicides. He was saying, why don't farmers in Bihar commit suicide?
Okay, that was a good question. Now, it's very interesting. Maharashtra, Punjab, and Karnataka or Andhra are the states which are having suicides as, epidemic or endemic, whatever you call it. It's because they are into a farming system which is very risky, because most of it is cash crop driven. 70% of India's suicides are happening in the cotton belt. And cotton, as you know, is a crop which is highly intensive and is also prone to risks. That is why it happens. In Bihar, it is not so. Bihar is still into the sustainable mode. It has still not taken that kind of a culture. And we have been saying this, what we actually need is to move away from the intensive farming system to reduce that risk. Let me give you an example. In Andhra Pradesh, it started from one village. It started from one village. Today, 36 lakh acres in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. Please remember, 36 lakh acres, it is not 1 or 2 villages, does not use pesticides at all. Half of it does not use even fertilizers. The health of the people have improved. There is no suicide in the last 12 years in that belt. No suicide in the last 12 years. That is the kind of agriculture we need, not the kind of external input-based agriculture that has destroyed not only agriculture, but also the environment and so on and so forth. So we are suggesting that these are the kinds of mechanisms. This is the largest sustainable model in the world is in Andhra. And I'm so glad one good thing Mr. Naidu has done is that he has promised in the next 3 years every one of the 50 lakh farmers in Andhra Pradesh would be organic. I'm so happy at least one sensible decision is taken.
Well, thank you very much. I'm really sorry we've run out of time. This was really, I would personally bring back Devinder and others, Mr. Swaminathan, Alag, everyone in the farming sector like 20 times, because I think intellectually and emotionally, this is, and for self-preservation, the big challenge of our times. As I said, I'm not sure all of you will agree with what Devinder has said. It was too short a time for him to spell it out. But I think, at least for me, the one takeaway is that we have to shift the intellectual parameters through which we look at this. We spoke of why this matters. I would like to leave us with one thought, which is that if 700 million people are involved in a sector, it better succeed. Because nothing that we are doing can provide alternative jobs for all of them. If we stop thinking of them as unproductive and think of them as entrepreneurs, at least entrepreneurs who are looking after themselves and are not part of our social problem, not part of criminal nexuses, it is because they are looking after themselves. If we speak of them with a different vocabulary, we might arrive at different solutions. And Devinder is one of those people out there constantly challenging the vocabulary through which we speak of the farming crisis. And so for whatever it did, whatever sparks it created, thank you very much for being with us, Devinder, and I hope we continue that.